BlogTalkRadio, the world's largest online radio network.
Good evening, America. It's 6 p.m. in the East, and you're listening to CRF Radio, Conservative Republican Forum, sponsored by Lowry Group Properties, for Saturday, August 18th, 2012. I'm your host, Steve Rosenblum. My co-host, Daria DiGiovanni, will join us shortly. If you want to let people know about the show on Twitter, use the hashtag CRFRadio. If you have comments or questions, we do welcome your calls. The number here is 347-637-1121. Our guest tonight is former Wall Streeter, CPA, actress, stand-up comedian, conservative political satirist, and friend of the show, Ellen Karis. We'll be talking to Ellen probably in the front half of the show. We're going to talk to her about the economy. We're going to talk to her about the Ryan pick, the Ryan budget and Medicare plan, and, well, whatever else comes up. Ellen's a great guest and one of our earliest guests, actually. But before we get to that, let me say this. It's not been a really good week for Team Obama. And I'd love to tell you how really sorry for them I feel and how bad I am feeling for the president, but then I'd be lying, and I never lie to my listeners. No, I'm quite pleased by this, actually, and it's probably only going to get better. But in no particular order, you've got the White House press corps actually upset with the president because he hasn't sat down with any of them for an interview, although he has done interviews with People and Entertainment Weekly. In fact, the president will not even sit down with Kingles himself, Chris Matthews, who wanted to do an interview with him for MSNBC's coverage of the Democratic Convention. Now, Mitt Romney did sit down with, I believe, Chuck Todd of the White House press corps for an interview. So why can't the president? Well, we'll discuss that later. Also, we've got the president looking extremely angry and extremely desperate in his attempts to make it appear that Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan want to hurt seniors and want to end Medicare as we know it. That lie. It's not working. In fact, there was a poll in Florida that was done, and basically the question was, which plan are you more afraid of? Ryan's plan for Medicare or Obamacare? And it was Obamacare by a wide margin that they were afraid of. And well, they should be, because it's going to hurt everybody. $716 billion out of Medicare. That's going to hurt seniors. It's going to make it much harder for them to find a hospital or a doctor that will take their insurance. So they may have the insurance, but they're not going to have access to care. Why is that? Well, the $716 billion is in slowdowns in increases in payments to doctors and nursing homes and hospitals and other providers. Now, you can do the math on this one. If a doctor or a hospital can't make their money by taking Medicare patients, they're going to slowly stop taking Medicare patients. A doctor who has a relationship with somebody will probably keep that patient, but they won't take new Medicare patients. Hospitals, they've got a bottom line. At some point, they're going to stop taking Medicare patients, or they will ration the number that they take. And all of this so that they can insure just a few more people and raise costs for everybody. Because it was never about health care, it was about control. But I digress. Continuing with the bad week for the president and Team Obama, Say It Ain't So Joe was extremely gafftastic this week. I'm sure most of you heard the they're going to put you back in chains remark, which initially I really didn't think that Joe meant what everybody thought he meant. And I really still don't think so, because he was in an audience that was almost 50-50 white to black. And I just don't think that's what he meant to say. I think he took something that he said Mitt Romney said, unchaining Wall Street, and he tried to turn it back into something cute. And it backfired on him, as it almost always does. They had kind of pulled Sheriff Joe back for a while, but I see that on hotair.com that Joe Biden will be back on the campaign trail next week, And that's great because Rasmussen says that Paul Ryan is already been polling better in terms of qualifications to be president, if necessary, than Biden is. You know, that whole heartbeat away from the presidency thing, that's real. Do you really think, as bad as Obama is, can you imagine Joe Biden in the presidency? Talk about not being able to sleep and waking up at 3 a.m. Holy crap. Gas prices have been ticking up. Not good for Team Obama. They're actually dusting off the oldie but goodie we're going to release from the strategic oil reserves, which, of course, may lower gas prices for a week, but it's going to go right back up and hurts our national defense, hurts our preparedness. So I hope they don't do that. What else? Unemployment is up in 44 states, including many of the swing states. That's not good for Team Obama. He's got OPSEC, a nonprofit group made up of former special operators and intelligence personnel, coming out with an ad basically imploring the president to stop leaking classified information for political benefit because it's going to get people killed. That's not so good for the president. We've got a new book out called Obama's Globe, which basically points to the fact that Obama has abandoned our allies and for some reason gotten very cozy with some of our traditional enemies. Timing of the book is deliberate, and I haven't had a chance to read it, but I like where it's going. I agree with what I've read in the snippets about it. Things that I've talked here about the president, for some reason, aligning himself with the Castro brothers and Hugo Chavez when the whole Honduran thing went wrong and their president was ousted by the Supreme Court for trying to steal the election and basically take over the country as Chavez did. It also points to his errors in dealing with the Palestinian-Israeli situation, his ham-fisted handling of the Egyptian crisis, the so-called Arab Spring. It goes on and on. We won't rehash all of that. What else? Oh, of course, you also had Media Matters calling Navy SEALs, a word I won't use here because I don't want to insult cats. Can you imagine pacifists calling Navy SEALs that go out there and put themselves in harm's way for us anything but, well, heroes? They call them cowards. Just despicable. All of this stuff, basically what you have is Team Obama and his surrogates and himself just had an incredibly, incredibly bad week. And it got so bad with Joe Biden that at one point there was a story floating around that Hillary Clinton had been asked to replace Sheriff Joe as the Veep. I don't really think that was true. I don't think she would have ever taken it. It would have made Obama look incredibly foolish for having Joe Biden on the ticket all this time. Nobody would have believed a health crisis caused Joe to drop off the ticket. So that was never really going to happen, I don't think. Of course, we also had a former Democratic governor going after Joe Biden and criticizing Joe Biden. That's the first black governor, Douglas Wilder. Just thing after thing after thing this week. I'm probably forgetting a few. But I guess the other thing is that Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan have just done a really good job. I'm just really impressed with the way they've been handling the attacks. They look like the adults in the room. I think they've been doing a great job of explaining, in general terms on the campaign trail, what they would do with Medicare versus what Obama's already done to Medicare. And they've done a really good job just all around with the budget, everything. They're on message, and they're not getting distracted. And, just really impressed. So, I do believe, I think Daria had dropped out there for a second, but I do believe she's back. Let me bring on my co-host. She is an independent blogger, an activist, a writer, editor, internet radio host, the author of Water Signs, A Story of Love and Renewal. She's also one of the conservative divas, and now she's also the director of social media strategy for thepeoplesvote.com. She is the multi-talented and multitasking Daria DiGiovanni. Daria, is that you? Oops.
Hey, Steve, it is me. It is I. Can you hear me?
Hear you now.
Awesome.
Hope we lost you.
Well, I was calling in on Skype, and then, I was listening to your monologue, and then all of a sudden it disconnected me, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to call in from my new iPhone. I'm not going to even bother with Skype tonight.
All right, then. So, you were off last week, and you didn't get to put in your 2 cents about the Ryan pick, and now you get to put your 2 cents in, plus an extra nickel if you want, because he's been campaigning like crazy for a week, and you get to analyze it from that point of view.
Yeah, I have to say I was pleasantly surprised by that pick. Of the choices that were being floated out there as on Romney's quote unquote shortlist, he was the one I liked the most. Let me put it that way. I just the thought of Chris Christie, for example, being on the ticket. Bad enough he's a keynote speaker, but I'll leave that as a sidebar for right now. But getting back to Paul Ryan, yes, I was very excited about the pick. And I think that it shows that Romney is willing to kind of take on the difficult issues. And it's so far been proving, and this is due to Paul Ryan being such a great campaigner, such a smart guy, and a guy that knows how to do math quite, aptly, that he's out there and he's able to explain things like the budget and Medicare and what's really going on and what his plan really means and redirecting the conversation. And Steve, I cannot wait until the vice presidential debate between him and Joe Biden. I mean, it's going to be a night to pass the popcorn and sit back and enjoy. But I'm really happy about it. I will say I do know some conservative activists in Wisconsin who know him who are happy, but they're not like over the moon the way other people are. I mean, and I think that the risk that we run as activists is we somehow delude ourselves into thinking there's a perfect candidate or that we're going to solve these problems that were created over a number of years in 1 or 2 elections. And so, you look at somebody's voting record, and granted, he did vote for TARP, and I know that in the Blaze the other day there was an explanation for that. But even Amy Kramer from the Tea Party, one of the Tea Party groups, Tea Party Express, was on Greta and said, hey, you know what, I'm sure there are a lot of people who have taken votes now that they wish they could take back, but we support Paul Ryan. We're very excited about the pick, and we're ready to move on because after listening to your monologue tonight especially and seeing portions of Obama's speech today in New Hampshire, I am just firmly ABO, anybody but Obama. And I will say that Paul Ryan energizes me to really want to get out and vote for this ticket versus just, holding my nose and voting because the alternative is so much worse. So I'm really happy about it.
I can't disagree with anything you said. I mean, I said last week, and it wasn't an original thought, I had heard other people say it, but since Romney basically had embraced Paul Ryan's budget and he was going to get attacked on it, why not have the architect of the plan as your running mate to stand beside you or be out there on the campaign trail or be interviewed and explain it better than anyone else can? I mean, the Romney plan, whatever it is exactly, is not exactly the Ryan plan, but it's, I guess, based on it. And look, the Ryan plan doesn't actually cut the budget, if you will. The budget will still grow, but it grows by about half as much as it would under the Obama plan. I also think that the Ryan plan is a much smarter way to protect Medicare while preserving the promise of Medicare to seniors that have paid into it for so long. If we don't keep it solvent, it's going to be gone for them as well as all of us that are much younger and don't actually believe we're going to get to partake in it anyway.
Yeah, and Steve, I don't know if you saw the coverage of Paul Ryan in the Villages today, but I mean, which is all seniors, and there were thousands and thousands of people there, and they were cheering him on because seniors are concerned about their children and their grandchildren and their futures, and they understand that his plan does not affect people 55 and over. And so, that's what's always left out of the media coverage. And you're right, having Paul Ryan as the VP nominee, and giving him the opportunity to really explain his plan and how it works. And he does it so eloquently. I mean, I think he's great. So, yeah, I think we now have a clear, distinctive choice in this election, and I'm really excited about November.
Okay, great. You know, the other thing, and it was interesting, it was a liberal that pointed this out. Kirsten Powers pointed out that the Ryan pick may actually help Romney with young voters and take some of that youth vote that Obama got away from him, because they see that they've got no shot at Medicare or Social Security, which they will be paying into the way things are now, and Obama has let them down, and they're still saddled with all sorts of debt, you know, student loans and all that kind of stuff. They don't see jobs on their horizon, and you know, Ryan is younger, and he's speaking to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a really astute observation on her part. But
absolutely.
Continue this conversation with our guest, because I see she has dialed in. I know she's calling from the road. So without any further delay, folks, let's introduce political satirist and friend of the show, Ellen Karis. Hey, Ellen, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Hey, Ellen, we're great.
I'm so happy to talk to you. So much is going on, so I was so excited when you emailed me and asked me to be on. It was just the logistics. So I'm literally on 95.
Well, hopefully you won't drop out between cell towers.
I know. Well, we're clear sailing, I think, for the next half hour. So we're good. So it's a good spot. And I stopped driving, which is helpful. Because it's very hard to talk on the phone about politics and drive at the same time, because I like to talk with my hands, so it's just the whole thing's it's like a hot mess.
So, that's a Iranian thing, Ellen. I understand.
But I caught what you were saying right when I got on, and you're talking about Kirsten Powers. You and I must have seen something different, because the day that they picked Paul Ryan, and I forget which talk show it was, but she was on there, and they said somebody, and again, I'm sorry, I forgot what the host was. It doesn't matter because she's on 25 shows, but it's her and Bob Beckel, so I'll take her. She said, they asked her what are the Democrats, I like when they asked, like, you know, somebody like her or Bob, you know, are the Democrats, because of course they know about the whole party. They have the backbone to Obama. They said, do you think that, are they worried now because Paul Ryan would be a strong choice? And she looks right in the camera, straight face, totally in the moment, and goes, no, they're not worried at all. No, there's nothing to worry about. And I am just cracking up. I'm like, what hallucinogenics is this woman taking?
I think I must have seen, I know I saw her on Special Report with Brett Baer. It might have been a couple of days later. Maybe she had a chance to kind of absorb what was going on, and the bump that they immediately got.
Right, exactly. Maybe somebody called her and said, WTF? I mean, seriously? Worried? Everybody is worried. Everybody has to be worried. Now I really feel jazzed. Steve, the last time I was on the show was January, and Daria wasn't there. It was just you and I, because I remember I had a gig at Bananas Comedy Club in Hasbrook Heights, but I don't want to brag. And I was waiting to go on, so you and I spoke, and I was so disillusioned. I really, like, the wind was out of my sails. And I think we just kept talking about how we better get some fire going on this, because we're losing steam. And I think they were still weeding out. We're still in the debate process. And with Herman Cain came up, and every week it was like the new drama du jour. I felt like I was with my Greek family. But now we're on solid ground, and also Romney has gotten a chance to feel what the whole election season feels like, because the presidential election, whichever side you're on, there's nothing like it, and until you're in the thrust of the whole thing, do you not realize the effects, from a personal perspective, late night comedians making fun of you, people on Saturday Night Live dressing up like you, the whole 9 yards. So, but now he's into it. It's been a solid year since he's put his toe in the water and he's swimming around, and then with the debates, of course, really really weed you out. And I got to tell you, before he picked Ryan, I'm not a Chris Christie fan. I certainly wouldn't want him for vice president for New Jersey. He's fine. And we're talking about the vice president. It's just very different.
Right.
I was very worried. We all love Marco Rubio, but I'd like to see a little bit more experience. Not even from my perspective, just because what the media is going to do to him. But he's going to be great. We know that he's the future also. And then there was some of those other sort of miscellaneous people that were thrown around. And Jeb Bush, I always say, let the Bushes just, live the civilian life, because I think
I agree.
We're not going to win. We just forget it. Let's just close the door. Nothing against them. Live a good life, and that's it. We're done politically. Let's put that dynasty away. But this is great. I mean, this guy's in the thick of things. He understands. He's smart. He's articulate, and he's only 42, but he's been doing this since he's 26. So the experience is there. It's Wisconsin. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. It's good. I really feel good, and I certainly feel much better than in 08. I mean, 08, I really felt like we were doomed. I was just hanging on to that glimmer of hope. But even with the little thing charge that we got with Sarah Palin, and then they mutilated the poor woman, it was too much. It's funny though, I don't want Romney to pick Sarah Palin. I think Sarah Palin is a very good spokesperson for the party. I think she says some good things, and I think where she is right now is a good place for us, instead of running for political office and having to go through that scrutiny again. And who knows what the future is going to hold for her. But I have to say, if she were the pick now, after what she's been through, it would be different. But I just didn't want to go there. Like, let's just get fresh blood.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I mean, they're going after Paul Ryan, but they're going after Paul Ryan on the issues. They are not going after him personally. And, it's disgusting, but we know exactly what the reason is. It's because he's not a woman and he's not a minority. And if he was either of those things, he'd be fair game for some reason.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry, the other person just came to mind. They toyed with Condoleezza Rice, and I'm like, please.
No.
I mean, come, please. Again, smart woman, nice woman, certain things I agree with her, certain things I don't, but she just wasn't, that you've got to have just a certain cut, and he's got great, the resume, I couldn't have picked a better choice. So I'm very happy that it all worked out, and then let's go. It's 82 days, and they're on the road, and the money's there, and that's important, because as we know, that wins that helps win an election. Clearly, we don't have the media on our side, so we'll see what it takes. But and they lie. They're just throwing all of these things. I was just looking on Facebook, and somebody had posted a article from Paul Krugman from the New York Times, and it talked about why Paul Ryan's ideas are horrible, and it was about his cuts in Medicare, and then which again. Such a lie, and also the tax cut and how that's going to give us, another $10 million or $5 million in deficit, as opposed to what Obama's been doing in the 3 years that he's been in office. But this is the deal, right? Think about it. The way that he writes the article, and again, if you're just sort of somebody that just reads the New York Times and just accepts it for what it is, if that were me, I would look at it and go, yeah, tax cuts, that would cause a deficit. No. Tax cuts will help increase revenues, which will increase tax revenues, because that's what it is. It's amazing how it's spun. But apparently Krugman, hey, he's the mecca of economics. Please. He wrote a book on derivatives. I wouldn't use it to let the dog pee on it. Oh, please.
Well, and the other thing, Steve and Ellen, that's been exciting this campaign season, and you mentioned Sarah Palin. Well, she's helped some serious contenders for the Senate, win their primaries, and she forced a runoff for Martha Zoller in Georgia, who's a real strong conservative. And so I think, combined with the addition of Paul Ryan on the ticket, I think that's also generating a lot of enthusiasm, because let's face it, we have to retake the Senate. Absolutely, absolutely have to.
Right.
So,
I completely. Right. We have to get the whole enchilada. No question. No question. No question. And yes, that's a great point with Sarah Palin, because she does go out and she does raise a lot of awareness. I'll tell you, I wouldn't mind her as a chairperson. I really wouldn't. I mean, she really, she isn't afraid to speak her mind. She's really understood that she needs to be more detail-oriented in some of the things that she says, and she takes no prisoners. So I like her role as it is for now.
I agree, because I just think she helps candidates and the whole movement this way. And she's well, to borrow from Say It Ain't So Joe, she's unchained. There's nobody, if she was the RNC chair, she would have to moderate what she said, because she'd be the RNC chair. If she were an elected official, she'd have to moderate what she said, because she's an elected official. She has to worry about getting reelected. In this position, she just helps people raise money and sends money to them through her PAC, and she just influences the conversation when she goes on Fox News or Newsmax or wherever, and just speaks her mind.
Yeah, no, she's really become a very important role, and I think it's perfect. I mean, I really feel like everything happens for a reason, and everybody does what they do for a reason. So this was her path in helping us. But there's still a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of candidates that are cropping up that are very good. I was listening to Mark Levin the other night, and they had that woman from Florida who is running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I don't know if you guys have talked about her, Karen.
Yeah, we know her.
Oh, is that a bad thing or a good
and
thing?
She's really bad.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
If Mark Levin thinks she's good, he needs to take another look, because he's wrong. Yeah, she's the one that lost to Debbie Wasserman Schultz last time, because she ran such a nasty primary that even Republicans didn't come out to vote for her. They stayed home or skipped over her.
Ellen, I heard that interview too, and if I didn't know her from living in Florida, and if I was like you and just heard that interview, I would have thought, man, this woman's a bomb. So I understand how it comes across.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, then I guess I'm not going to her restaurant. Forget that, then.
Oh, you don't want to. It's not her restaurant. It's her parents' restaurant.
Oh,
Did she say it was hers on the air?
No, she said it was her family. Yeah, no, she said it was her family.
Yeah. She's quite a piece of work, and she's unfortunately been promoted by a blogger that everybody seems to think is wonderful, who isn't. And she's really snowed everybody, but she's going to lose big to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, Debbie is disgusting, but this woman's the other side of the coin.
And Steve, the shame of that primary in Ellen was that we ended up splitting the ticket on the conservative side because there were too many people in it. We had Ozzy, Steve, and Joe, and either one of them would have been great in my opinion. But you have three people now vying to run as a Republican against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and you split all those votes in the primary, and this is what happens. And then you end up with Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
If you look at the results of that primary and you add up the votes of everyone else, she would have lost if that had gone to just one candidate. And that's exactly what she wanted. She wanted other candidates to split that vote against her. She had the best name recognition, and then this blogger went out and muddied the waters by saying that this one had a criminal record and this one has this problem and isn't conservative enough, and it was nasty. And if you're not in Florida, like Mark Levin is not, you wouldn't know any of that, and it's unfortunate.
Well, do you know what this really means? This really means that if you want to know the truth, you have to tune into your program. That's what that means.
Well, definitely you should have known that.
We're very truthful here.
Wow, better information than Mark Levin. I never thought I would experience that, but clearly I am. That's great. That's great, you guys. I really, really hope. I talk to a lot of people, as you guys do all the time, but I talk to people that obviously agree, with a lot of our principles, but it's very, very important that we go out there and we talk to the people that, either, just aren't aware. They're in their life, of course, like many people are, not really understanding the details, and that's our job. Our job is to educate them and to let them know so that when they do go in the voting booth in November, which is what every American should do, although I realize that that's not reality, that they make a good choice, because it's really, we are on the teetering point, the absolute teetering point. This is going to, I know I'm not being dramatic. I think this is really, because if he gets in there for another 4 years, he is going to do even more damage. I mean, God knows how long it's going to take to even try to undo some of this, if we can possibly do that. And forgetting about the things that we don't know. But this is really going to be the teetering point, because we're really kind of at that edge. And the Medicare, I mean, the health care, it's such a deep issue. I mean, who wouldn't want, and again, it's the way that it's spun. I mean, Paul Ryan is talking about vouchers, of course, for the under 55, forget the over 55. And by the way, those people really need to understand that nothing will change for them. But for the why wouldn't you want a choice? I mean, I just don't understand it. It's almost like the same thing with the schools. I mean, why wouldn't you want a choice? Why would anybody want the government telling them and ruling about just about every aspect of their life?
Especially when they get it so wrong.
And you know what, everybody? I want people to go home, and I want them to pull out their tax returns. And I want them to add up state, local, federal. Then I want them to pull out their phone bill, their cable bill, their shopping bill, their food bill. I want them to add up all that. I want them to dedicate a day, call it tax day, not April 15th, another tax day. I want you to sit down. I want you to add up all the money that you spend and you give to the government, and I want you to tell me if you think you're getting your money's worth.
And a great idea.
And I want you to take that money, I want you to divide it, and that's going to be the numerator, and the denominator is going to be your income. Tell me how you feel.
Mm-hmm. The numbers don't lie.
Tell me if you're behind, is it going to hurt after that, okay? Tell me.
Right.
Because it's a bad scene. It's a bad scene.
And the president and his campaign are playing on the fears of that. They're actually lying. They're saying that the Ryan plan would be a middle-class tax increase at the expense of giving a huge $5 trillion tax decrease to the rich, which is untrue. First of all, everybody would get a tax cut that actually pays taxes. Yes, the rich would get a proportionally greater amount because they pay more. Amelia Antonelli was on this morning on Fox and Friends, and she was explaining it, and she made it so simple. If there's $1 in taxes, and I'm paying 80 cents of it, and you're paying 20 cents of it, and they give us a 10% tax cut, I'm going to get more money than you, but I'm going to get proportionally, because I took proportionally more in the first place. I put in proportionally more. If there's a cut, I get proportionally more. All Ryan wants to do is simplify the tax code and put it into 2 tax brackets and cut out some of the so-called loopholes. That's all he wants to do with the tax code. Everybody would get more money. It would broaden the tax base, and as you said earlier, it would raise revenues. It's been done before. It's not that complicated.
First of all, there aren't any accountants in the United States anymore that can, I mean, unless it's just a W-2 form, that can do a tax return by hand. Everything is just put in, input it into the computer. The program does it. Who knows what goes on? As long as you get this number at the end. I mean, the professionals are very much, in some ways, very out of the loop. I mean, they know how to gather the information, and I'm not putting down CPAs, having been one myself at one time, but it has become very, very complicated, especially as you have more wealth.
Sure, makes sense.
But I have to make this point. If I hear one more time that the wealthier people, that the millionaires are people that make over $250,000, I'm going to throw my shoe through our new TV. flat screen, I might add, so that's going to be very difficult. I have to say, as opposed to the old ones where, you know, like you were able to really throw your shoe through. Because clearly President Obama must have skipped integer class at Jakarta Junior High, okay? Because I don't know how this man can get on TV each and every day and say $250,000 and those are millionaires and with a straight face, and then the press goes and regurgitates what he says. What is going on? I can't. It just blows my mind. It just does. As far as the tax code goes and all this, the biggest, to me, and from what I remember when I used to do them, is allocation of income and also where a lot of corporations are allowed to incorporate and they wind up allocating their income offshore, and the fact that a lot of companies now do businesses offshore. So unless they're going to get some tax incentive to have companies come back to America and do business in America, we've lost that tax base. Years ago, when I was an auditor, there were many more factories, there were many more companies that are here. I guarantee if I went back, most of those companies are probably out of business or they've gone overseas. Certainly anything that's manufacturing. So somebody better come up with some other kind of idea, incentive of how we're going to get that revenue back into this country. But a very important example is the insurance companies. Insurance companies are allowed to incorporate, and a lot of them have, in Bermuda. Bermuda is not part of the United States last time I checked, and they're not paying taxes. So there's a lot. To me, that's more of the tax loopholes than, you know, how many loopholes does somebody that gets a W to a salaried income have? What loopholes are there? What are they going to do? So instead of saying that they contributed $1,000 to, you know, in donation to the Salvation Army, they put $2,000, and nobody checks the receipt. That's not a loophole, okay? That's far from a loophole. You know, it's so ridiculous, and it's very, very complicated. And there's a whole thing called the alternative minimum tax, and that's, you know, that's just a huge mess. That should just come out. And to me personally, I think that they should jack up the deductions. And I think that if you want to really get the real estate market to get a little bit, you know, hotter again, because when your income is, I think for married people it's $250 and single people it's $175,000. Those deductions, itemized deductions, like interest expense, for example, on real estate, on mortgage, which is one of the incentives of why people want to own real estate, those deductions start to fade out. And of course, you're not getting those deductions dollar for dollar. You're getting them based on your tax rate. But even after that, it starts to phase out. I'd get rid of that phase out, and I'd let people deduct, you know, use it as an itemized in its entirety. I mean, they're so stupid. They're just so stupid. And by the way, this is the IRS, and this is the same governmental branch that's going to take over Obamacare, right? Because isn't the IRS going to fall under Medicare? And so they're going to handle our medical records? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my
gosh. Isn't that reassuring? Yeah.
Great,
isn't it?
It's the whole thing. Big government, bigger. I got to say one thing before I forget. Last Saturday night, we went to go see the movie 2016. I don't know if you guys have discussed it on your show yet.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Playing in Melbourne, so I'm very excited. Go ahead, Ellen. Yeah.
I urge your listeners to go, for a lot of reasons. We should go to support the movie, and you should go to see the movie because it's very interesting and from the perspective of where Obama's coming from. Because, you know, I mean, you know, I know probably like most people, you know, a little about his background, the Hawaii and his mother, and the absentee father. You know, like I know all that kind of stuff. I didn't read Dreams from my father. I didn't read any of his books. I have no desire. But I got to tell you something. When you go and you see this movie, it is very, very enlightening, and a lot of it comes from his own book, Dreams from My Father. Because, I mean, the crux of it is Obama really identified with his father. even though he barely knew his father. And his mother was such a radical. I mean, and the woman was from Kansas. You would think, you know, a nice Midwestern woman. She's quilting. She's baking pies. No way. I mean, she was. Really, she should have just lived in another country because she had such a disdain for capitalism and just the way that America's principles. It's very interesting. I urge people to go and to see it if they can.
Yeah, I would definitely want to see that. Dinesh D'Souza has done excellent work researching Barack Obama, and he's the one that's in that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. No, it's his movie. He narrates it. It's very interesting how he starts it out. It's great. It's great. It definitely. Unless you really are reading and watching this 24/7, and there's a lot of detail there that I didn't realize, and his mentors along the way. They're very, very interesting. But we got to get out of this, we got to get out of this.
Yeah.
Got to get out of this really quickly. I love the whole Joe Biden thing. I want Joe to stay. I don't want, because it's so great. I mean, you can't write stuff like this. I mean, he's like the Art Carney. He's like the Ed Norton. I mean, I just want to see him in a vest and a T-shirt and a hat. That guy is such a clown. I love it. But what he is dumber than a doorknob. I want him to keep going. I think they should keep him out there.
And they are. He's going to be back on the campaign trail this week. They've already reported it.
I love it.
He's unchained. And I love that comment too, because the Republicans are going to put you all back in chains. Really, Republicans are going to put blacks back into the chains that Democrats fought so hard to keep them in the first place?
Right.
Really?
Right. You know what's so ironic about that statement? And if people were taught proper history, they would see how ludicrous it is. The Republican Party was formed as an abolitionist party against slavery. I think, it's just so crazy.
But it didn't matter. It wasn't about that. It's about reaction. It's about just, what it is? If you throw enough stuff to the wall, something will stick, and that's what he's. I mean, and the man is just so stupid. But aside from that, it's just about that. It's just about throwing it. Let me say this, and this way I'll get a reaction. Let me say this, and you know what? They're so insulated because they know that for the most part the media is behind them. The mainstream media is behind them. No one's going to really call them out on it. So they'll just say whatever they want. I mean, that's, Obama looks in the camera and he says all kinds of things about what he's doing and how he's saving money. I mean, he's saving nothing. He's taking away, and it's all about getting people more and more dependent. It's destroying us. It's destroying the soul. I mean, it's really getting to the soul. And I do hope that young people, when I say young people, I mean people that are graduating, the new graduates, the new workforce, they're feeling it. Because listen, we were I don't know about you, I can't remember about you, Daria, but I know Steve and I, we were 24 once. You don't want to be living with your parents. I mean, you want to get out. You want to work. You want to be independent. And freedom and independence, I really feel that is in the core of everybody, regardless of what your race or your religion or anything. In this country or any place in the world. That's why all the depression in the Middle East and people uprise, because in your deep heart of hearts, that's not the way human beings are wired. Just like it's like breathing, and it's like getting hungry, and it's like being thirsty. It's like you want that. You really want that. And I hope, because that's going to really, I think that's going to be the key in turning this election around. Because that was, of course, the core population that we lost the last time. And hey, do you blame them? Right? I mean, they don't have any life experience. This guy comes out, he's cool, he's hip, everybody loves him, he's on Jon Stewart, blah, 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 blah. And then, we had John McCain, this old goat that couldn't even step on the stage. But now it's a whole different thing. Romney's polished. He has a lot of business experience, which we need. We got Paul Ryan. He's great. He knows how to, bring home the message. And we have a really great opportunity to go to these kids and say, hey, you, Hunter, you're living in your mother's basement. How's that working out for you? How's that going? You feel good about yourself? Don't you want to be in the city with your 3 roommates and, with the dartboard and the foosball table, having a good time and working? I mean, that's who we got to get.
Well, it depends. You know what? The truth is, it depends on the parents, actually, Ellen. If the parents are making it a 3-star hotel and cooking meals for them and doing their laundry, they probably love it there, especially since Obamacare will let them stay on their insurance until they're 26 years old. Talk about the nanny state. But, if the parents are smart, Dave Ramsey's daughter was on Fox and Friends this morning talking about just this subject, that she was giving advice to parents. She said, don't make it a 5-star hotel. Don't just think they're going to be there for 6 months. Tell them you're going to be here for 6 months. Get yourself a job and get out of my house. Make them pay some rent. Make it uncomfortable so they want to get out, and then they will.
Get rid of their water bed. Get a twin bed.
Oh, it's definitely a twin bed.
And
turn off the air conditioner.
It'll be easier for them to do that when we no longer have a socialist for a president. So.
Right.
And they can actually get a good job and afford to pay rent, but just play devil's advocate.
Not for nothing, but in this economy, if you're, starting out, you might have to flip some burgers. You might have to take a job you don't want. You know what? And they don't. And you saw it with Occupy. They don't want to do that. They don't want to take the job. How many of them were interviewed and said, hey, if we offered you a job tomorrow, today, would you get up and go take it? No.
Well,
I was doing that kind of stuff recently. A few years ago, while I was freelancing, after I got laid off from my job, and I was doing freelance work and temp jobs. I mean, I had a friend who has a deli. I was delivering food on the weekends to make extra money. That wasn't above me. I did it, So, yeah, that is a good point, Steve.
Right. Well, but I think some of them, but then there's the ones that, they do want to hustle. They do want to get ahead. They do want to be independent, and hopefully they'll be in the right mind to, really understand what's going on, and that we're losing ground. We're losing opportunities. And the whole thing with unemployment, as we know, is so bogus. When I hear 8.9%, that's nowhere near what it really is. That is such hooey.
Oh, it's much higher than that. But we've discussed many times on this show, especially since Daria and I were both unemployed. As soon as my unemployment benefits ended, they stopped counting me as an unemployed person, but I was still unemployed. There's a lot of people that have fallen off the benefits or are underemployed. They've got a part-time job, and they're not counted. And, that's why the number's like 14 million people. It's probably closer to 14%, and it depends on the state you're in. Nevada, I think, is like a 12% reported, and if you're in New Hampshire, I think it just ticked up to like 5.4%, which is actually pretty good right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's a bad, it's a bad scene. It's a bad scene. So anyway, we have an opportunity, I think, to at least, to at least stop the bleeding and get us back on some type of track. I mean, there's still a lot of issues out there. There's the global issues. There's a lot of that tension. But, and even with that, too, I mean, I don't care what anybody says. Obama is not a supporter of Israel. I don't care what he says on the camera. There's, and I'm not holding myself off to be the Mideast expert, but from what I can see with Egypt turning around, and, that's a whole other ball of wax that somebody really needs to, we need to really, really address. Europe is in the toilet. I mean, totally, that's a whole other thing. And hey, why? Because other than Germany, there's not a whole lot of capitalism going on. I mean, France, which is, and by the way, the little I've been to Europe, France and England, and of course my homeland, Greece, which I've been to a couple times, and it's just so beautiful and, so rich with history and culture. But, when it came to, business and being on the up and up and investments and a real capitalist system, it completely fell apart. And France, my gosh, what's more beautiful than France? And look what's gone on in that country, which has also become a very, very Muslim in many, many parts, which is like a whole other thing. So it's just not good. That part.
Europe has two huge problems. They have socialism and unemployment and the whole nanny state, and they've allowed far too many, like, as you say, Muslims, Arabs, to immigrate without any restriction, and they haven't made them assimilate into their cultures, and now they have this whole group of people that are in their midst that don't think the way they do, don't think of themselves as being European or French or whatever country they're in, and they're hostile, and they want to live in a completely an isolated little bubble. It's terrible.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. I hear you. I wanted to mention. I wanted to mention one thing that is sort of off course of some of this, but since you guys are big supporters of the troops, I got involved in an organization. It's called Operation Warrior Wellness, and a couple of weeks ago, I hosted an event, and we honored an old time. I would say old time isn't old, but a classic movie star named Connie Stevens, and it's back in the day. It was before our day, but she used to do a lot of touring with Bob Hope, who to me is, one of the great patriots as an entertainer.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and so we honored Connie, and it's called Operation Warrior Wellness, and it's to teach, to raise money to teach the vets how to do transcendental meditation, because it is like 100% proven that this helps them with post-traumatic stress. And I'm really starting to get more and more involved with this organization. And I love Wall Street Warriors and Wounded Warriors, and I try to do whatever I can. And my husband, even when he does corporate events, he always does them as a fundraiser as well. And I just want to make people, just aware of something. There's a lot of these types of organizations out there, and this one in particular, again, teaching meditation, which I actually went through the course myself, and it really is quite amazing. And I am one of the most neurotic, high-strung people ever. But it's just not to compare myself with somebody coming back from Iraq, of course, but it really has been proven to help with post-traumatic stress. A lot of vets have been doing it. They were even teaching it to kids in like inner city schools. Talk about being hostile, prisons, and it's just so great. It's called Operation Warrior Wellness. This one part of the David Lynch Foundation. David Lynch, the producer, and it's sort of a subset of his whole TM thing. So it was just something very important. I just want to mention to people, and just wherever they are, to just look into anything supporting the vets to me is good. But anything of these ages, because these guys are coming back, and talk about not having jobs also. Right. Being scarred, and and some of them wind up joining the military because they can't find jobs, and they figured, okay, this is one way. And I think it's important that when they come back here, we take extra special care of them, because it's not easy. And I haven't done it myself, but I do have comedian friends that have gone to the Middle East. I'm trying to get that going for me, but they go, and they do the entertainment and the comedy, and these kids are so young, but they're great. They're great, and the least we can do is come home, when they come home, to take care of them, not only physically but mentally. So Operation Warrior Wellness, great organization. Connie Stevens is a patriot. There were a lot of vets there. There were first responders there. The first responders, as we know, also Gary Sinise, great guy, very, very supportive of the troops. He does so much work. He's got a foundation also. You can go to his website. So I just want to give those people a plug, because it's important.
Yes, it is. Speaking of some things that you're involved with, what's been happening with the Greek church in Lower Manhattan that you've been trying to get the money that they're supposed to be getting to rebuild it?
Thank you for mentioning that. That is still, as far as I know, on course from the Greek newspapers that I've been reading, the Greek American newspapers. Our Archbishop is in sync with that, so that seems to be moving along. Nothing is stopping it. It's going to take some time, but at least we're going in the right direction, and the commitments are there, and which is what we want. So December the 8th is, December the 8th is the Feast of St. Nicholas. It's when we honor St. Nicholas, and there's always a service down there at Ground Zero. So I'll certainly be going down there, and that'll probably give it a little bit more publicity at the time. But things are moving along. I haven't heard about any roadblocks, so that's a good thing.
Excellent.
Yeah,
well, we are almost up to our
9/11
anniversary, aren't we?
Yeah.
We may have you on the show again sooner than I thought, because you're always on our anniversary show.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I know, it's that 11 years, you believe it?
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, I know. I probably, we just pray for everybody, and we pray that we're safe, and, and again, it goes back to, the people that we send overseas and the people that are here to help them, and we need to help them, to protect them as well as the way that they protect us. So, and we're going to make that change, and it's all going to be good, and we got to have faith.
Well said. I think we'll leave it right there because we actually ran over, which is great. We love having you for extra time. Thanks for joining us, Ellen, and I'll be in touch about September 11th. Yeah, have to definitely get you on for that too.
Okay,
thanks,
Ellen. Right, say hi to Barry.
Thank you, guys. I will. Thank you so much for having me. All right, bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, folks, so that was Ellen Karis, our good friend, conservative political satirist, and you got a good taste of her humor there as well as her intelligence. We are late, though, for our break, so we're going to take our break. We'll be right back, and...
Don't touch that dial.
Red State Talk Radio. Talk radio the way the Founding Fathers would have done it.
Digital radio, the sound that fits into your ears.
Back to back.
The soundtrack to your life.
Lock it in and rip the knob off. Red State Talk Radio.
All of us need to be reminded that the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Okay, boys, set the terror level at Code Brown, because I need to change my pants.
Listen to Conservative Republican Forum with your hosts, Steve Rosenblum and Daria DiGiovanni. We're ending the silence of the silent majority. Saturday evenings, 6 p.m. Eastern, at www.blogtalkradio.com/Stephen R. Repub. Our guests include politicians, candidates, authors, television personalities, as well as military and intelligence experts. We hope you'll tune in this and every Saturday evening and listen to our rebroadcasts on the Red State Talk Radio Network.
Let the liberals have the cult of personality style of leadership, but what I am concerned about as far as on the Republican side is that we don't continue with the the entitlement mentality when it comes to elevating people to the next levels of leadership. We've got to break this paradigm. We cannot continue to have the model of Bob Dole against Bill Clinton or John McCain against Barack Obama. We've got to do something totally different.
President Obama is not culturally American.
Here's to the Army and Navy and the battles they have won. Here's to America's colors, the colors that never run.
And the wings of liberty never lose us.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
And we're back. You're listening to CRF Radio, that's Conservative Republican Forum, on Blog Talk Radio and perhaps on the Red State Talk Radio Network, where we're rebroadcast by our good friend Primo Mondoni. I am your host, Steve Rosenblum. My co-host, Daria DiGiovanni, is with me, as always. We just finished talking with political satirist and our friend, Ellen Karis. We had her on for more than half an hour because it was just that much fun. But now we're going to be a little unstructured, I guess, because we don't have a guest in the back half of the show, and we have about 25 minutes left on the air before we do the closing and whatnot. I saw this really excellent quote from Ronald Reagan, which I had not seen before, actually, and it seems just so appropriate for the times we're in right now. So I thought I'd read it. Extreme taxation, excessive controls, oppressive government, competition with business. Frustrated minorities and forgotten Americans are not the products of free enterprise. They are the residue of centralized bureaucracy, of government, by a self-anointed elite. Gee, does that sound familiar at all to you, Daria? Does that sound like anything we're living through right now?
Yeah, absolutely. The man knew what he was talking about, even, 30 years ago or whenever he said that. But yeah, I mean, it's all playing out. And even, when you look at Ayn Rand too, I mean, when was Atlas Shrugged published? Like in the 50s? I mean, it's amazing.
20s,
the foresight that she had.
20s? Isn't Ayn Rand from the 20s?
I think the book, I don't know, I thought that the book came out in the 50s. I know that she left Russia, she escaped after the Bolshevik Revolution, and she worked in Hollywood for a while. I don't know, I'm not sure, I can look it up while I'm sitting here, but my point is, I mean, she was well ahead of their time, too. I mean, there were so many people like Reagan and Rand who saw what was going to happen and predicted everything that we're living through now. It's amazing.
Isn't it interesting that that Paul Ryan is being attacked on the basis that he somehow follows the teachings of Ayn Rand? Both Barney Frank and Rachel Maddow have made that connection somehow this week. And I don't really know when Ayn Rand became so radical that it's like, it's not like he's like following the teachings of Hitler or like our president that his disciples, Chairman Mao.
Yeah, Saul Alinsky, anyone? Frank Marshall Davis, anyone? Yeah, they're strangely incurious about, the literary influences in Obama's life. But, Ayn Rand, oh my gosh, they all get hysterical and start hyperventilating. It's crazy. It seems to be, when it comes to Rand, too, you get people on the left who think, oh, well, if you happen to be a Christian, Paul Ryan is Catholic, as am I, and I like Ayn Rand, too. I mean, I don't agree with her on everything, but liberals seem to think that it's not possible for someone like me or like Paul Ryan to read her book and say, you know what, yeah, I agree with her 100% economically. I don't agree with the things that she says about religion, but I respect her economic views, and I think, you know what I mean? Like, it's somehow a foreign concept to them that you can agree with somebody for 75 or 80% of the things that they say and maybe disagree with them on 20%, but still have a tremendous amount of respect for them and really promote their economic policies. It's just it's unfathomable for the left. It's really funny.
Well, it's true, and you see it all the time with them. They totally attack each other on the things they don't agree with within their own party, and I guess we do it to some degree in the Republican Party, but I think that we tone it down a little bit more. I mean, most people know that I'm not a person of faith. I'm not really too concerned with any of that, and yet they also know that I'm a great defender of their freedom to worship as they please without being interfered with by the government. You don't see that kind of attitude on the left very much. You have to be in lockstep or you are just dead to them.
Exactly. And speaking of religion, I mean, look, you and I had our disagreements with Mitt Romney, and they were all policy-based, all record-based. Yes, there were things we liked about him, his business expertise and so forth. But we have, policy disagreements with him, even though now, yes, we're supporting him. But look at the left and look at how they have attacked Mormonism and have, totally slandered him and his religion. And even some people, on the right. And I took issue with that because, my problems with Mitt Romney at the time had nothing to do with his Mormonism. I respect the man's right to worship or not, however he pleases. And, as I said to someone, this country was founded on religious liberty, and I think religious bigotry is one of the ugliest things out there in our culture today. And so, the attacks against his Mormonism were just really just reprehensible to me. Absolutely. And I think to some extent they're trying to do the same thing with Paul Ryan. I think especially because, Wisconsin is a big Catholic population, some of those Midwestern states. So I guess their logic in that is to try to sort of alienate him from Catholic voters who might otherwise vote for him. And if they find out that he admires Ayn Rand, that's going to be like kryptonite somehow. I don't know, but.
Yeah, the attacks on Romney's Mormonism are so atrocious. I mean, first off, they didn't do that to his father, so I'm not sure why they're doing it to him. And then they attacked him for his money, because really, how do you attack a Mormon? They don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't even drink coffee and tea. Basically, he's just this clean-cut, nice guy. So somebody posted something great earlier this week about Mitt Romney, what he really did. He gave his entire inheritance from his father to charity. He volunteered for his father's gubernatorial campaign for a full year. He was an unpaid intern in his father's office for 8 years. Then he was a Mormon missionary in Paris for 2 years. He was an unpaid state president of his church for 10 years. He took no pay when he was the president of the Salt Lake City Olympics for 3 years. And he also took no salary when he was the governor of Massachusetts for 4 years. So that's 28 years of unpaid service to his country, his community, and his church, and they want to attack him because he made some money as a venture capitalist. Kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, the problem from their perspective with the Obama campaign is that, every other election Obama won up to this point has been done by really just completely dragging his opponent and their personal life through the mud. For example, unsealing, I can't remember the guy's name. I think the last name was Ryan. The guy that he was, ironically enough, the guy that he ran against for, state senator in Illinois. I mean, they basically unsealed that guy's divorce records and put his whole, personal life on display and really smeared his character. And they don't have that opportunity here with Romney because he's been married happily to the same woman all these years. And you're right, he lives a good life. Mormons are very good people. They're very service-oriented. There's no hint of scandal in his personal life. So there's nothing for them to attack that way. So hence, they have to create all these other distractions to go after him.
Which is why they finally could get him to release more tax returns, and they made him an offer. What a silly offer this week. Well, if you release, another 2 years of tax returns, we promise we won't attack you based on anything we find in there. As if their surrogates would somehow go along with that. And it's just they must think Mitt Romney's so stupid. But meanwhile, this president has spent millions and millions of dollars to seal all of his records, his college records, his law records. I mean, he and Michelle Obama are not even attorneys anymore, and nobody ever talks about why that is. And probably those records are sealed too. But he wants Mitt Romney to be transparent.
Yeah, and Michelle Bachmann made that point recently on Greta Van Susteren, and I wish Mitt Romney would say that. Maybe he's trying to be above the fray. I mean, I know he's not taking the bait in terms of he's refused, and I agree with him. I'm so glad he's not releasing those records. But Michelle Bachmann basically stated on Greta, she's like, well, you know what I would say? I'll show 10 years of tax returns when you show us all your transcripts. And she said it in a way where she was like, well, that's what people in my district are saying. She kind of presented it that way, and I thought, it's such a good point. But again, they just have to throw out distractions. And Steve, I didn't get a chance to ask, when Ellen was on the air, but I wanted to get your take on this too. Like, I mean, do you really believe that people are buying this absurd notion about, the whole class warfare thing? I mean, do you think that's starting to wear thin with people, especially people who are unemployed and looking for jobs? Do you think they really want to hear about how millionaires are getting a break? And I mean, because it just sounds so, it's just so bizarre to me. Now, I understand you and I and everybody listening, we all pay attention and we understand the news, but I got to believe, even to the average person, that they don't want to hear that crap anymore. Or what do you think?
Well, I think that the president and his team are basically playing a strategy where they're solidifying their base, because nothing he's doing, in my view, would make an independent voter comfortable with him. Because you're right, none of this class warfare stuff I don't think is going to work for independents. I think it works for the people that are already going to vote for him. And I think what the Obama campaign is really concerned about is that their base is not energized. And the only way they seem to think they can energize their base is to get them angry. And so basically you've gone from hope and change to hate and anger and division. And it's not working because he's not moving up in the polls, and Mitt Romney is within the margin of error with him in so many of the key swing states right now. I think they've made a tactical error, but I'm not surprised by it because he can't run on any element of his record. He doesn't want to talk about Obamacare because people are starting to have the details of it ripped out, because they're getting letters from their insurance companies telling them things that they don't like your rates are going to go up a lot. They realize that, especially the seniors, like I was saying earlier, that, they're not going to necessarily be able to go to the doctor they want to go to, that they're not necessarily going to have access. And so he can't talk about that. He can't talk about his foreign policy for the reasons we've outlined here so many times. All the things that are going wrong in the world, where the Obama administration is always 2 or 3 steps behind and just inept. Immigration, they've tried to, by playing identity politics, they've tried to get a bump out of immigration by painting Republicans as racist and anti-immigrant and anti-Hispanic, but I don't think that's working either. Because when people saw the lines of people, the millions of people around the country, these young people lining up to get this waiver so they can stay in the country, I think people looked at that and said, wait a second, you're making it so more than 1 million young people who are here illegally can get jobs, while Americans that are here legally and legal aliens can't find jobs? What, are you insane? How is that good for America? How is that good for people that can vote? So, no, I don't think any of this is working for him, and I love it.
Yeah, me too. And like Holger points out, why aren't we talking about our $16 trillion debt, which I do wish that, that Romney and Ryan would hammer on a little bit more as well. We're talking about Romney's tax returns, and for all, and what you just said makes perfect sense. I mean, it's the only, even though the strategy is not working, it's all they've got left in their bag of tricks, and so they're going to hammer that from now until November. I mean, because you're right. I mean, all this is only going to alienate independents and just any really decent person who's just trying to understand what's going on here and make an informed decision. I think they're really tuning out this kind of hateful rhetoric. So he is trying to shore up his demoralized base, because he certainly doesn't want to talk about our $16 trillion deficit or, the double-digit unemployment rate or what's going on in the Middle East, which is falling apart as we speak. And, yeah, that's absolutely true. So I'm glad it's not working, and, I'm glad that, Ryan's really hitting it out there on the campaign trail. Like I said, he had that great event today in the Villages, and, his numbers are up. They've gotten how much, I believe, Steve, and correct me if I'm wrong, about the donations have gone through the roof now since the announcement of Paul Ryan. So,
yes, they have. Now that the ticket's solidified, people are ready to put their money behind it. And a lot of the money is money that Obama got 4 years ago. Goldman Sachs, all of those guys gave to Obama in 2008. Now they're all giving to Mitt Romney. They've seen what Dodd-Frank is doing to their business. They want no part of it. They're tired of a president that at every turn demonizes Wall Street, demonizes business, demonizes small business owners. I mean, really, I'm trying to think of who the only people that might vote for Barack Obama are the hardcore leftists at this point, and people that are just so brain dead that they actually believe the mainstream media when they regurgitate the lies from the White House. But I mean, if you're unemployed, if you're really, I can't. I'm trying to think of the group that would want to vote for him. Not vets, not currently serving active duty military or intelligence officers. They're going to be upset with him. If you're Jewish, you should be rethinking your vote if you voted for him in 2008. He's not a friend of Israel. If you're a senior, he's lied to you about Medicare. Remember, he's taken $716 billion from Medicare. Who's he giving it to? He's giving it to Medicaid patients as he tries to expand Medicaid. And how many people on Medicaid are illegal aliens? A lot of them. So if you're a senior, you can't like that. You know, small business people, Amelia Antonelli speaks to them very clearly. They don't like him because all the things that he's put into place have made it impossible for them to grow and expand and hire more people. And he's demonized them. He's demonized doctors during the Obamacare debate. You know, they want to take out your kids' tonsils because they make money doing it. You know, police officers acting stupidly.
Yeah. Despicable.
So, unions.
And you know, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, and now that I am working for a small business owner in a company that is a startup and have seen firsthand the blood, sweat, tears, and your own, and the amount of your own money that goes into it when you're the person with the dream and the vision and all the effort it takes. I'll tell you, and not that I didn't know this before, with my dad building his practice and, being the son of immigrants and working his way through school, but just from a business standpoint, of somebody that a traditional small business, somebody we would consider that. I mean, it's unbelievable, and I kind of joke, it's really opened my eyes to how difficult it is to start a business. You got a great concept and a great product and all that, but there's so much work that goes into it, and getting investors and raising the capital and securing a location and hiring your employees and just all the hoops that you have to jump through. So my hat is off to the small business owners and really to anybody in this country that has a vision and works hard and, gets off their butt and makes it happen without the government. But the problem is that we've got the government, putting all sorts of obstacles in the way of success now, and it has to end. And Ellen's right, it's got to end this November. Absolutely has to. We have got to vote him out.
Yeah, absolutely. But, we have to also, if we manage to do it, we better really keep our eyes on the Republicans. Because, let's not kid ourselves. George W. Bush did a lot of things with and so did other Republicans that were not conservative in any way. No Child Left Behind was not conservative.
Department of Homeland Security, not conservative.
Not conservative. No, I like that. That's good. And there were other,
Medicare,
the
prescription
amnesty, comprehensive immigration reform, amnesty, not conservative. So we definitely have to keep an eye on what this hopefully new president does and what this new Congress does.
Oh, absolutely, without question. As I frequently remind people, the Tea Party movement is as much a reaction against the policies of George Bush and big spending Republicans who went to Washington and became completely corrupted as it is against Obama and the left. And I would even argue more so because our side is supposed to be the fiscally responsible adults in the room. And so, yeah, absolutely. And any Republican who forgets that, they do so at their own peril because you got hardcore patriots now who are paying attention and who aren't going to stand for it.
True. On a side note, something I meant to mention last week, and I forgot about it, unfortunately. The conservative movement in Congress lost a real fighter. He didn't die, thank goodness, but he's no longer a member of Congress. Thaddeus McCotter, frequent guest on this show, resigned his seat, and he was not able to get back on the ballot in Michigan. Apparently, some of his staffers, well, frankly, they were acting like Democrats. They thought that the rules didn't apply to them, and they were falsifying petitions to get Thaddeus on the ballot. And at his request, there was the Attorney General of Michigan did an investigation and did interviews, and these people have admitted to what they did. And apparently, and not surprisingly, Congressman McCotter was not in any way involved or aware of it. But at the same time, I think he took responsibility for it in the sense that these people all worked for him for a long time, and he was unaware of what they were doing right under his nose. So he is now Mr. McCotter, apparently. I know he is not, at the moment anyway, taking interviews, so we can't get him on to talk about any of this. And, we had a lot of spirited debates with Congressman McCotter, and even if he calls himself Mr., I don't think I could stop calling him Congressman. And, look, there were things that he voted for and went for that I totally disagreed with, and, brought that up to him, and, he explained himself and why he did it, and nobody changed anybody else's mind, but there was respectful back and forth about it. Like when he voted against TARP, but he voted for the auto bailouts because he represents a district that has a lot of auto workers and their families in it. Not surprising, it's his constituency, so he voted for it. But I totally disagreed with him anyway for doing it, and there were other things that he did. But I guess my point is that I am sorry to see him leave Congress. I am sorry that we will not be able to have those back and forths with him, at least for a while. I mean, who knows? He may make a political comeback down the road, or maybe not. I don't know. But we do wish him well in whatever he does do.
Absolutely.
Let's see. We've got about 5 more minutes before we got to do our closeout stuff. I don't know, any subjects that you wanted to touch on that we haven't really hit yet?
Well, I mentioned this before, but I think it's worth noting again. I am really excited about some of these Senate races that are coming up. We've got Richard Murdoch in Indiana, who defeated Dick Lugar in the primary, and he's now running in the general. We've got Deb Fisher in Nebraska. A guy by I can't think of his first name, but a gentleman by whose last name is Aiken in Missouri, who is sure to pick up that seat against Claire McCaskill. Of course, that huge win for Ted Cruz in Texas. And, and Alan West here in Florida handily won his primary, was it like 85-15. So pretty excited about that. Like the Georgia primary, that runoff, I believe, is next Tuesday with Martha Zoller. I mean, how great is it that she forced a runoff with somebody who's another entrenched incumbent? On the downside, John Mica defeated Sandy Adams, again, due to the redistricting here in the state of Florida. And, he's a Sunrail guy, and he's a big crony capitalist, and he's as bad as any Democrat in office. But unfortunately, he had a lot of money behind him, and, he soundly defeated her, which is a shame. But, it's mostly good. And as I said with Ellen when she was on earlier in the show, that we have to take back the Senate. It's critical. So I'm excited about how things are playing out there. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Steve, Linda McMahon in Connecticut, who I know, from somebody else who's, one of my friends is in Connecticut. Again, it's kind of like, there's never going to be a perfect candidate, but I think given, looking at her and Chris Shaves, I'd rather have Linda McMahon running. We'll see what happens. Unfortunately, in my opinion, Tommy Thompson pulled it off in Wisconsin, and he's another kind of big spender type of Republican. I was hoping one of the other more conservative guys that were challenging him would win. But again, I wonder if that's a case of again, splitting that vote on the right instead of fielding one really good, solid conservative candidate to go up against, sort of a GOP Rockefeller type, and being able to elicit the support of the grassroots and really have a good contest where he actually stands a chance of winning, the conservative person. So. But overall, I think it's looking good for November.
Yeah, there's some good and some bad out there. The invisible conservatives saying we forgot to mention the guy who's running against Emmanuel Cleaver, Jacob Turk. I actually didn't know that Jacob Turk was running against Emmanuel Cleaver, because there's 435 congressional races out there. It's very hard to pick up on all of them.
Right.
When one comes across my radar, I try to jump on it. Like we were supposed to have a congressional candidate at our guest today, Matt DiGiovanni, lost his primary out in Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District to a guy who, I'm not sure how he won. Apparently, neither was DiGiovanni's campaign sure how this guy won. Basically, he seems to be a comedian and a smoking advocate. And in fact, his campaign website, and I've got my air quotes going here, is I think smokethevote.com or smokethevote.org or something. The guy in his picture, he on the website, he's not wearing a suit. He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. His hair is long, and he looks like a Hawaiian surf guy. Apparently, this campaign had no idea that this guy was going to clean their clocks on primary night. Literally, the email I got from their campaign was, "We were shocked to discover we lost." And when I asked who won, the description that I got from the campaign was, they gave me his name, and they said, I think he's in the building industry. And I already knew that wasn't true because I'd already done my research. At that point, I knew exactly how they lost. And I hate to disparage this candidate because he's a military veteran, a Navy vet, but let's face it, just being a vet doesn't make you infallible, and he may very well have been right on the issues, but apparently he did not put together a great campaign staff, and they didn't do their opposition research, and they weren't prepared. And that's a shame.
That makes all the difference. Yeah.
But,
for sure.
Like I said, I don't want to disparage the guy. I'm just saying, and they still wanted to be a guest on the show. They want us to have him on, and I thought about it, but I said, this is not what we're doing. We're not having candidates that are no longer candidates on this show. That's not part of what we do here. But, folks, if you do have candidates, like I said, there's 435 congressional races going on out there. If you know a good conservative Republican candidate that isn't getting coverage, the Grassroots Candidate Series is for them. So either give us the name and the district, and we'll get in touch ourselves if we can. If you have a contact in the campaign, if you're working on the campaign yourself, as many activists are, let us know. We're always looking for good candidates to have on. Anyways, we are down to about 4 minutes, Daria, so it's your time to let everybody know what you're doing when you're not here.
Well, I'm very excited to have finally made the move to Brevard County, Florida for my new job with thepeoplesvote.com. And please, everyone, if you haven't already registered, please go to the website, check it out, and register today. But I'm the Director of Social Media Strategy for the company. Our new office space opens officially on September 17th, which also happens to be the 225th anniversary of the United States Constitution, which is very exciting. So I'm just really thrilled with this. Things are going very well. I'm really excited, and just, everyone, please go to thepeoplesvote.com and register. And again, Steve, I just have to note this before I sign off for the evening, but, all of the opinions that I express here on CRF Radio and in other places on my own social media accounts are my own opinions, and they're not reflective of my employer or thepeoplesvote.com. We're basically a technology company operating in the political arena, and as such, thepeoplesvote.com does not take sides. We are there for all citizens, regardless of their political philosophy or party registration, to use to hold their reps accountable and to foster a two-way communication and keep people informed. So please check it out. And thanks, everyone, for listening tonight. It was another great show, Steve. Glad to be back on the air with you.
All right, Daria. Glad you were here. All right, folks. I do need to mention quickly, if you missed, Kira Davis has an open letter to MSNBC's, what's this guy's name? Tory. Guy's a real jerk. He accused Mitt Romney of, his word, niggerizing the campaign. Kira Davis, who happens to be a young black female conservative, has this great open letter video. It's posted on hotair.com. I'm actually posting it in the chat room right now for those of you that are in the chat room. But if you're not, go to the hotair.com archives for August 17th. And you should listen to Kira Davis' show, too. She's great. Anyways, I want to thank our sponsor, Lowry Group Properties, operators of 3 assisted living facilities in South Florida with locations in Bradenton, Homestead, and Sebring. You can learn more about them at www.lgp-alf.com. The music you hear at the opening and closing of the show is used by permission of the artist, my friend Shannon Kerfman. Learn more about her and her music at shannonkerfman.com. I want to thank Daria for being my co-host. Thank Ellen Karis for being our guest for more than half an hour. I'm not going to tell you where to go read my blog because I haven't been writing recently. I'll just say thanks for listening to CRF Radio for Saturday, August 18th, 2012. We hope you'll tune in next Saturday, August 25th, 2012 at 6 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have a great week, and thanks for listening.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.